Is truth the most powerful weapon in the world? Well, I think so. Because if you don't have any vulnerabilities, you can't be exploited. If you don't have any pretenses, no one can say that you're not what you claim to be. And life is quite often a matrix of little deceptions. People trying to look like they're more wealthy than their neighbors. People trying to look like they're better leaders than they really are. People trying to look like they're more qualified for a promotion than they really are. People trying to look like they're more entitled than they really are. The list goes on. We all have an agenda, something that we're trying to convince others to see. And life starts to be a difficult thing to manage when you have to always try to make sure you've got your stories straight. But nature doesn't seem to have this problem, because nature doesn't have any pretense. It just is what it is. You might like it, you might not like it. Nature doesn't really care what you like. It doesn't care what you want to see. It doesn't care about you or anyone's opinion. It just is true to its own set of laws and rules and the sum of its parts. When we live our life in an honest way, then we have the leverage of a mind which is free. There may indeed be consequences that we have to deal with, things that set us back. But if we don't have anything hidden, then we allow the truth to be its own arbiter. We allow the truth to be our advocate. Or if the truth is not on our side, then we allow it to be our teacher. But very few people live their lives in a completely honest way. Now, I want to be very clear about the fact that being honest and being truthful does not mean that you don't have any privacy. It's absolutely okay to say no. It's absolutely okay to say, this is where I stand. Based on my judgment, this is my position. And certain aspects of my life are private. That is respectable. That is more than okay. That is something that any well-balanced life should do. But we live in a world of double-faced people. People who will act like they care because it's a social situation and you're supposed to act like you care because that's what we do, and then they look for a way to ghost somebody as soon as they go around the corner and they're able to save face and have a double standard. It's all hugs and smiles when we have to put on the right face, and it's going mum when you have a chance to dip out without consequence. You see, we waive the rules when they don't suit us. We pretend that we follow rules, which we actually don't intend to follow. It's all sorts of deception and trickery, and there is a tradition, I understand, in Japan. The general idea is everyone has to be polite. Everyone has to be kind to others. That's the way it's supposed to be. And so people bring each other gifts. But you're not supposed to accept a gift when someone gives it to you. People are supposed to come and bring gifts, and then you say, oh no, I couldn't accept that. Thank you so much. But no, I really couldn't. And you're supposed to go back and forth in that way several times. Each time you go back and forth, it's a sign of increased respect. So it's kind of like a Russian roulette of nicety. And then after a number of times, like after you've said no 2 or 3 times, then it's okay. If the person actually continues to try to give you the gift, then at that point you can finally say, okay, I guess I'll take it. And then you can actually know that that person meant what they said. They actually were giving you the gift because they wanted to give it to you and not just because it's a social obligation. That's kind of, not how it is in Western life, but we still have our little games that we play. Things that we think we're obligated to do, so we do them. Little tricks we play so that we look good without actually needing to be good. That gets old after a while. When you realize that your entire life is built on lies and all your relationships are built on other people's lies. At some point, you got to hit the reset. At some point, you've got to say enough is enough. And we're just going to treat each other on the level. And let your yes be a yes, let your no be a no. And if people want to try to punish you for the positions you take in life, so be it. If people want to try to do you harm because of where you stand, or people want to try to get back at you in some way, that's their obligation, just as it is your right to defend yourself to the best of your ability. But it sure is a lot easier to engage with people when you're not actually afraid. Because you know that the worst possible thing you could do is struggle to communicate. But not that you really have any skeletons in your closet. You're honest, you're on the level. Maybe somebody doesn't like it and they try to hurt you because they don't like what you stand for. That's possible. But so what? If that's what puts you into a position where you have to fight, I'd say that's a fight worth having. It's when we know that deep down inside we haven't been honest, we haven't been forthcoming, we haven't been transparent, but then we want other people to be transparent. We want other people to treat us fairly when we know that we haven't been treating other people fairly. You see, when you know that you sold yourself out to something you don't believe in, but you don't want to have to face that for what it is, so you try to skirt the issue. Well, then life's kind of hard to deal with in that situation, because it's a paradox. One of your premises is wrong. And it's hard to find a way forward when your life is a contradiction. So figure it out. You got to balance your own checkbook before you can give other people financial advice. But once you got it all settled, once you're on the level, then just do your thing. I couldn't tell you how many times I've dreaded a conversation with somebody in a work situation. You tell people what they don't want to hear. If you're in human resources or you're a manager or something, and you always fear, What if I don't say quite the right political thing in quite the right way? And then somebody goes after me and they take my job or get me fired because, I'm going to try to say the right thing, but what if I accidentally talk myself into a corner, you know? Every word feels like you got to choose your verbiage right, because, you know, you're just one misspoken phrase away from getting fired for some sort of a legal misstep. Well, maybe. But I'll tell you that far more often, people who don't have a winning hand want you to think that just because they screamed discrimination, or they said that you were trying to target them because of a protected status or whatever it might be, just because they said they're a victim, you're going to be the one who pays. And quite often, that's not actually how it works. Quite often, the truth is what prevails if you give the truth a chance. If you have not done anything wrong, quite often, you don't have anything to be afraid of. But people are always banking on you being the one who flinches first. People who have an agenda, people who make up arbitrary claims against you, people who want you to be afraid of them because of the dirt that they claim to have on you. Well, if there's no dirt to be had on you, then I guess they don't really have a whole lot of power to negotiate, do they? In life, it's very difficult sometimes to get up to a place where you can say you are not in any form of financial or spiritual debt, where it all balances out to zero. We wind up being in debt to people, in debt to companies, institutions. We wind up so heavily leveraged that we cannot speak with conviction or honesty, because we're always afraid that somebody is going to out us. Somebody is going to expose our hypocrisy when we try to hold them accountable for theirs. And so, we don't. We live in the shadows, trying to play it safe, and occasionally trying to venture out because we want to have conviction. We want to stand for something. A little bit, at least. We want to look like we stand for something. But the best thing you can do is be in a position where you don't have to be beholden to anyone. Just think about the freedom you'd have if you go to work at a job, but you don't need that job. Then maybe your employer needs you, and so maybe they respect you. Maybe if somebody asks you to do something immoral or unethical, you walk away. You say no. Goodbye. That's it. But what if you have to make a choice between, feeding your family and doing something that's just a little bit in the gray area of unethical? Then do you bend the rules? Do you do what you're supposed to do, even though it's not what your conscience tells you you should do? It's also true that predators smell fear. And when you act like you have something to hide because you know you do have something to hide, they'll feed off of that. And as soon as you're on the defense, it's awfully hard to regain the upper hand. So keep your nose clean. Don't get yourself into things that are sketchy. Don't compromise your principles. And when you finally get to the point where you know you are all on the level, then finally, don't be afraid. Stand your ground. Don't back down when you're faced with a bully. and don't be afraid to be yourself. Wherever you find yourself on your journey, best of luck. Always. Till next time, thank you for watching.